You've also been translated. So how does that happen in Italian and Estonian? So
Yeah.
was that
Well,
just
I think it happens.
serendipity, or did you position yourself for it?
So those are two different questions. How did the idea of positioning is a different topic, right? Which let's put that aside for now and come back to it because
Okay.
it's really necessary actually if you want to talk about contemporary publishing. So
Okay.
translation for me happened is that in the with my first book. So bigger publishers, they go to book fairs, international book fairs, and they take their catalog with them, and they present their catalog to publishers in other languages, and they might like it and then choose to translate it. That's how it happened with my first book. Um,
Okay.
so it was in a catalog. A publisher in Italian, saw it and said, "Oh, we want to translate this." That's how it happened.
Okay.
पाकिस्तान में हमारे publishers international book fairs जाते नहीं हैं.
Hmm.
And this is again one of those issues where this is where you need the state, the interests of the state to intersect with the interests of our
Hmm.
creators, because
Hmm.
the state should be sponsoring Pakistani trade delegations to international book fairs
Hmm.
across all Pakistani languages, not just English languages.
You're
There
right.
should be Pakistani pavilions at the Frankfurt Book Fair, or the Paris Book Fair, or here London Book Fair, jo bhi. That's
Hmm.
because smaller publishers in particular, how are you going to afford to take your catalog to? How are you going to afford the visa fees? Forget about anything else. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's one way traditional route to being translated. My second book in Estonian, I went to again a publishing literature event many years ago. I met some translators who I touched with. One of them read this book. Her daughter read it, who happens to be a translator and wanted to translate it, and that's how
So
that
this was
happened.
survival tips.
This was survival tips. Yeah, yeah.
So that's how it happened.
That's how it happened. Yeah.
And can you speak a little to how your work was adapted for cinema and theater as well?
Yeah. So Rafina, which was the fourth book of mine that was published, was actually a novella that I wrote right at the beginning before I even wrote my first novel. And I never even published or submitted it to anybody because I had written it, and a filmmaker who was looking for stories
Okay.
often made it into a film. So that's how it happened. And the film was
So
called
which
Good
film
Morning
is that?
Karachi. It's
Is
called Good Morning Karachi.
okay. That's a
It
Pakistani
was, yeah,
production.
it's a Pakistani production. I think Pakistani, and I'm not sure what the producer was. I mean, these things are sort of cross border, but
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And what about cinema
And again, so that was
for the
cinema,
theater?
and then and
Theater.
theater again. My book was published by an Indian publisher and
Mhm.
a theater troupe uh, in Madras, which is now Chennai. Is it? Please correct me if I'm wrong.
I wouldn't. I'm not sure
Uh,
myself. But go
yeah,
on.
read the book and wanted to adapt it and did it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
are there any? Um, I mean, do they adapt it and change it? Is there any loss of flavor, or is it as it is
I
used?
never saw it. I mean, it
Oh,
was
okay.
yeah, I never saw it. I didn't even watch the entire film of
Good morning, Karachi.
the
Okay.
book. Yeah. Um, I tried watching it, and after 10 minutes, I said, "Shandana, kisko." So I just
Actually,
again.
survival tips would make a nice movie, animated or something, with all those wildlife and children and
Yeah. So I think that some writers thrive on that. But I
mm,
actually, for me, it's very awkward to have other people adapt my work. I would just rather not know. I
okay.
think that I'm perfectly happy. You've created something and then it has a life of its own. It doesn't belong to you anymore.
Mm,
And a book in particular. So I've said this before as well about how a book is never the same book. You can pick up a book and you can open it. It's a different book from the last time you read it. And
right.
the particular alchemy of writing is that each book and each reader have their own different relationship, and no two readers read the same book. So that
Yeah, that's
multiplies with
true.
every kind of
Yeah,
story. So you can't be there all the time, and you
yeah,
shouldn't. You should do your work. You should say thank you so much for the artist, and
yeah.
then move on to the next thing.
But in a culture and atmosphere where you're saying that writers can't make much money or a career out of writing itself, it would be interesting to be for your story to be picked up. Like we have writers writing in Urdu who are now writing for TV dramas for channels also.
Yes.
So in that
We have
sense,
a lot. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot. I mean, we have, some of our best work, some of our best writing has come out of the television, actually.
Yeah.
You know, in the 70s and 80s, even the
Yeah.
early 90s. But again, not something that's relevant to English language writing, because we are a tiny minority
Yeah.
in a vast sea of beautiful languages, and we get too much attention. There aren't enough of us to justify the kind of attention we get. I think it's a kind of elite capture of the cultural imagination, which should be
That's true.
resisted by the writer
that's
as well as people. Yeah.
Yeah.